It's Thursday, July 31st, 2014. I'm Jimmy Principe.
I'm Sydney Foster.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 82. Your last call for tech news of the week. Tonight, Jimmy pays $5 a month for the government's nuclear floppies. Sydney is amazed by Spanish bureaucracy. And I use BlackBerry's passport to get the hell off the internet. But we start tonight, strangely enough, with a new BlackBerry device.
Wait, what?
Yeah, no, it may seem odd to start with a BlackBerry story, but this is one of those crazy swing for the fences things that I fall in love with. So BlackBerry,
it's a doomed product, isn't it?
I love a good doomed product.
Star-crossed lovers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bad omens.
So BlackBerry has a new phone coming that is absolutely nuts. It is called the Passport, and is roughly the same size and shape as one. It has a modern screen size that I've heard described two ways. It's 4.5 inches on one side by 4.5 inches on the other side. So it's a 4.5 inch square screen, or roughly a 4.7 inch diagonal.
It's a 4.7 inch diagonal. Yes,
right.
that's
correct. If I can times 4.5 by root 2, you get roughly 4.7.
Root 2 is what, like 1.3 something?
Yeah, something like that in my head. It's 1 point something.
No, it's 1.42.
Yeah, right. And since it's the hypotenuse of
Math
of an equilateral right triangle,
keep going.
It is
onwards.
The hypotenuse
What's
is
more
just
into the breach?
4.5 times root 2. See, you learn things on this show. So it's got a 4.7 inch screen, but it's a square rather than a rectangle, rather than a true rectangle.
Okay, it's a square display. The device itself.
Right, no, but that's
square. But
that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
But the device isn't a square because it also has a really wide and really compact physical keyboard beneath the 4.7 inch screen. This creates a phone that is huge and very wide, roughly the size of two iPhone 5S's stuck together.
We got grab your iPhone and Sydney's.
Okay, so I don't have my iPhone
this
in here.
This is not a good illustration.
Okay,
so
for those in the
Trey
audio
has small
edition,
hands,
I have
remember,
tiny hands, so maybe you don't listen to T4 and you haven't realized. So I'm holding up my tiny hand, and I've placed an iPhone on my palm, and I flip it over, and it almost falls off my palm, which gives you a sense of what this thing would look like in my hand.
Comical.
Right. It runs BlackBerry OS 10.3. The keyboard functions as both a keyboard and like a swipe keyboard with so you don't have to depress the buttons. You can just swipe from button to button.
It's like a touchscreen on top of the keys.
They're touch buttons. And did I mention the thing looks ridiculous? So, the thinking with this device seems to be a play at winning back BlackBerry's core audience of large corporations and governments. They bought a security company this week as well. By putting a physical keyboard on a modern screen, BlackBerry seems to be trying to bridge old school and new school. No pricing information is available. We don't know what carriers, and we only have the vague release date of September. So
it'll be released in November sometime.
Right. Yeah. It'll be released next year CES. So could this be BlackBerry's passport to newfound success?
No.
I'm sorry, I keep looking at this picture just going, what?
Okay, so I think it's a really interesting device. So, okay, let's be clear. I do not think that this is going to save the company, but I see the logic that got them to this point.
Yeah.
And it makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Yep.
Like
a frightening amount of sense.
Like a lot of sense. Because if you look at it, okay, so the reason why it is called the Passport and is shaped like a passport is because the business people that they're targeting, I bet it's a quad band phone.
Sure. I mean, let's assume it does all the things you would want in a business class device.
Which is one of the reasons my dad originally got a BlackBerry, was because it was a quad band phone. Businessmen are already used to carrying a passport. I mean, we were just in Spain for a number of weeks, and I got very used to the size and shape of my passport, which is more than what I normally would carry in any sense. But I got used to it. It was just a thing that I did, and it's fine.
And it seems to me, I have not gone hands-on with this device, but people, reviewers that I trust have, and apparently it fits in a pocket, sort of.
In a man pocket.
My favorite story
Yes.
about that is the write-up that Roger Chang at CNET did was that apparently the guys that were overseeing the phone would not allow you to touch it without them touching it too. And so he must have looked at one of them. I could see how this goes. I need you to shove this in my front jeans pocket.
I need you to shove this in my pocket.
Why?
I need it to
see if it's
feel.
pocketable.
That's why. Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, no, this is not D4. I can't say that.
I need to feel.
I need to feel.
Wrong show.
I don't know. It's BlackBerry.
And I want him to look me in the eye while he does it. I want
Look,
you to
you
look
never know
me-
what kind of stuff they're doing over there at BlackBerry because this thing is crazy. They are
This is
totally swinging
crazy.
for the fences.
But
The
that's
weird
what
thing
I
though
love.
is that they're not releasing it for enterprise stuff. Really, they're releasing it as a consumer-facing.
they're
product.
the strange thing about, well, I mean, we don't have all the information on this, but they're seeing this as a bring your own device play rather than a bought through the company play. Which, I mean,
No.
I don't have a corporate IT structure that provides phones, but I'm related to someone who is very much in charge of that decision making.
Provides phones for his corporate IT structure.
Who provides phones through his corporate IT structure, and he'd look at you and go, "Well, no one's going to do that. We have a deal with AT&T, and that's how we funnel it in." So probably that play won't last, and this will just end up getting bought in bulk by the Pentagon. Because, I mean, that's where this is going, right? This is going to every congressional staffer. That's where,
Look, if you could do real typing on it, like real no-look typing on it, which
Sure.
presumably you can if it's physical keyboard, I mean, that's the thing. It could be really, because if you think about it as what I'm remembering from the size of it, it's probably like the size of the Lumia 1520.
No, well,
Maybe not quite, but almost.
but it's probably, so the Lumia 1520 is a 6-inch on the diagonal, but it's probably as wide but not as tall as a 1620. I don't
So
know.
you're thinking
The
it's actually
1520 is
small-
giant.
16
Well,
the 1520.
yes, the 1520 is gigante, in a
It's
way that I don't.
Preposterous. Do you want me to look up the Note?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably similar in width. Again, the height, I'm not entirely sure, because that keyboard's pretty compressed and small. I like the idea of this device. Now, let's be clear.
It's a fascinating device. That's for
I
sure.
I like the crazy devices. I like the companies that swing for the fences, because we think of an iPad as pretty staid and boring right now, but let's remember that was a huge swing for the fences. Let's do this. This is nuts, but we're going to do it
We all
anyways.
looked at that thing and went, "This is insane.
This
no
is
one
insane.
wants this."
Who wants this, right? It's a 10-inch iPhone. What am I going to do with that? I still don't know what I'm going to do with that.
It turns
Still
out
haven't
we were
answered
right.
that question.
Still haven't really answered that question. Although at the time I thought I had. This is, like the Xbox One, like the Surface, like the iPod and the iPhone and the iPad and the blue plastic iMac. This is a device that's swinging for the fences. Now, history is littered, Palm Folio, with Palm,
Exactly.
the Pre. I mean, history is littered with failed swing for the fences devices. But BlackBerry's on the ropes. They've sort of starting to lose their core audience. They're certainly not growing any more audience. And so what they said is, okay, fine. We're going to double down on the audience that we do have. And that is someone who wants a physical keyboard but doesn't want it to be... This is essentially their attempt at a no-compromise device. The compromise is that it looks ridiculous.
Yeah, it's too wide.
There is that
That's really
little
my
detail.
gripe with it. It is just too wide.
Ridiculous. And my brother had a Nokia Sidekick. What was the thing called? With the
Yeah,
side
that-
N-Gage.
Side,
No, he had an
okay.
N-Gage, not a sidekick.
The gaming thing.
The had the side talking. My brother had a side talking phone.
By the way, this thing is wider than the Lumia 1020 or the Galaxy Note 3.
Wow. The 1520 or the 1020?
Or a 1520, sorry. So the 1520 is 85.4 millimeters wide.
Okay.
This thing, the screen is 114 millimeters wide.
Jeez.
So, yeah. It's got a weird aspect ratio, to say the least.
The screen, you said 114 millimeters.
114 millimeters.
So that is a lot.
I don't have a height because,
So the 114 millimeters would be out to here, where my.
Hold your hand up for reference, Trey.
So here's my hand. This is tough.
You got
It goes all the way to the tip of my pinky. Yeah, it goes all the way to the tip of my pinky.
Gosh.
And that's how wide it is.
And that, yeah.
That's how wide it is with no bezel, mind you, because that's of the screen.
That's the screen. So yeah, I was about right with my two iPhone 5Ss pushed together. You flip an iPhone 5S, you get about the tip of my pinky. So for me, as a baby hands man, this device is a non-starter.
It's a great two-handed device.
Right. But
I made a very inappropriate comment to Trey about this device that I don't think I can repeat on this show.
True. Look.
Watch the other show. It's way more fun.
I want to see this device do well. Because, again, I love the crazies and I love the swing for the fences. And this certainly qualifies as that. I think this could work. I don't want to, it's too big for my hands, and that's hilarious. Partly because my hands are tiny.
Right, but you know who else's hands are kind of small a lot of times?
Women.
Women who make up a significant percentage of the
from
population, or so I'm told.
See,
And again, this is pocketable. This is pocketable for man pockets.
Yeah, but
this
it
is
can,
not
it can fit in
necessarily
a purse.
right.
Nothing's
But if we're
pocketable
talking
in
about
a
people
purse.
using this in an enterprise mode, I don't carry my purse around my workplace.
Sure.
I'm just going to say it. Nothing is pocketable in women's pockets.
No, that's not true. I can easily fit my iPhone, even with the ridiculous OtterBox of shame, into the pocket of
to be fair,
my work
she
pants.
calls it that. I don't call it that.
Well, the real question is this something that is this it for BlackBerry if it tanks? Is this it?
What is it?
I
We've been
know
saying
but
that.
BlackBerry has been
Look, I said that
dying
about the
for
Z10.
years.
Look,
They've released 5 phones since then.
Since the death of BlackBerry.
I think they are
I regret death
rapidly
of BlackBerry 3 years
not
ago.
dead yet.
I think they're rapidly becoming irrelevant, but the tech news cycle moves a lot faster than the corporate death throes last.
That's true, actually.
Okay? So
BlackBerry is twitching somewhere.
but
in a
BlackBerry's
corner.
not going to die in a news cycle. In the
No.
same way that, although Microsoft has had its struggles, it's a hugely profitable corporation. In the way that Apple may have lost its innovative edge and is still the most valuable corporation in the tech space and one of the most valuable corporations on the planet. Right? We may have moved on in terms of what's relevant, but what's relevant and what is making enough money to keep its doors open are two wildly different things. Google just shut down Orkut. Let's put this in perspective. Google just shut down Orkut, the social network that was big in Brazil in the early aughts. Okay? These things last a lot longer than we think about them. Because, just like we talked about on T4, we're not the ones always who are going to be thinking of these things. We are essentially, as much as we like to mock the technorati, we are essentially the technorati. Certainly the outside the Bay Area version of that. So the slightly toned down version of that. But think about all the people still using XP and their BlackBerries, and they've been using that combination of thing for 10 years.
Oh, yeah, and they're very comfortable with that. They're very comfortable with all their iterations of the BlackBerry Curve and,
all of the curves. And then the bolds. The curves and then the bolds. And then the rest of it, it's irrelevant.
Actually, no, the Bold. That's sorry, you caught me. They're the same thing.
Well, I mean, the bold
One's
is just
nicer
the
than the
higher
other.
end version, the next curve.
Same design.
Yeah, same
language.
basic. I mean, like my Asha de Nokia.
Exactly.
So, from things that the Technorati don't care about, something the Technorati seems to care a lot about. What did EA do?
Yeah, so subscription digital content apparently is a thing.
Really?
It's like
You
the
don't say.
future, and the newest company to jump on that bandwagon is Electronic Arts. This week, EA announced their newest gaming offering, which is not actually a game. It's a subscription game service called EA Access, exclusively for the Xbox One, mind you, for $4.99 a month or $29.99 for a full year. Beta testers at this point, and they said it'll be opened up to more people very vaguely soon. Will get access to 4 games for unlimited plays as much as they want, which are Madden 25, FIFA 14, Battlefield 4, and Peggle 2. With more games promised in the near future. In addition, it'll give you access to new EA titles, like the one that they gave an example of was Dragon Age, and then all of the 2015 sports games. 5 days before the release of the game, and then any progress you have during that time will be saved to your account. And so if you go buy the game, then if it's not included as part of the EA All
Which
Access,
it won't be,
then
because those are mostly going to be older titles.
right, they're new games. So it'll give you that 5-day window beforehand that you can access it, and then you can go buy the game. And oh, by the way, when you buy the game on Xbox Live, you get a 10% discount, and as well as you get a 10% discount on all DLC, including FIFA Ultimate Team. Right. That you also get a 10% discount on that. So that's a pretty significant thing. Now, you may be wondering, isn't this going to be coming to Sony and the PS4 in the near future? Surprisingly, probably not. Because based on a press release from Sony, the Japanese company does not feel that EA Access gives PlayStation customers the value that they would expect for $5 a month. So, Sydney, do you think EA has hit on a winning model here? Or is Sony right and the value just is not there for the average user?
I'm it's a little hard to say because I feel like, I don't know, and I think maybe it's difficult for me because none of these are games that I have any interest in playing whatsoever.
Oh, come on. I know you care a lot about NHL 15.
Yeah, all those sports
FIFA
games.
14 is one of the biggest games in the world.
Right, but I feel like people who want to play these games are just going to buy the game.
Well,
I'm not sure what the
yes.
benefit is of this of EA Access as opposed to me just going out and buying the game outright.
I mean, it's cheaper.
Right, so but if you're somebody who's into the game enough to want to play it...
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean by that. So, like,
because you're going to get a FIFA 15 the next year, right?
A Battlefield title sticks around for a while. Right? And Battlefield 4 only recently started working. So, I mean, really, this is the best.
Despite how long it's been out.
Now is really the time to really double down on Battlefield 4. And Hardline's not coming out until spring 2015 now, so that's going to be the current Battlefield for some time moving forward. And the real point of Battlefield, and actually really point of 3 of the 4 of those games, is competitive multiplayer. Either couch co-op in the case of FIFA, or FIFA and Madden, or online in the case of Battlefield. So these are games that last long, and it's 30. I wouldn't look at the $5 a month. That's somewhat of a red herring in this, because really the deal here is $30 a year right now. You get whatever this back catalog of games is, and it's going to grow. We don't know what it's going to grow into, but keep in mind how much of a back catalog EA has in terms of how long they have been making video games. And if instead of just having always only 4 games, if they have this year's 4 games and then all of the games from last year, and so it basically becomes like Netflix, right? Where you get the second run movies. The movies go to the theater, they have a time on DVD, and then they come to Netflix. Video games go to stores, they have a time in stores, and then they roll over to EA Access. Admittedly, with the sports titles especially, immediacy is a big thing for a lot of gamers.
They have a shelf life.
But they also have a shelf life of a year, and we're hoping this will hit before that year is up. So right. I'm not going to go buy FIFA outright. But if I was an EA Access subscriber, which I probably won't be, because I just don't buy enough EA games.
Yeah, no, it's an EA problem. It's not a problem with the model. I think that you get a lot of value for $5 a month.
Especially with the discounts.
The discounts I think
Look,
are really
but don't
it's
think
smart.
you're a crazy person if you pay $5 a month. You're
No,
absolutely
you pay
crazy.
$30 if you are at all interested in this. Just pay for the year.
$30.
Just pay for the year. That's 6 months worth of $5 a month. Even if you only use it every other month, you're still ending out the same.
Right.
And I'm sure you're going to buy an EA game sometime
Right,
in that
but
month.
think about this: if you buy 3 EA games, what is this? Yeah, something like 3 EA games at full price. It's almost plus a DLC. It's almost paid for itself.
Yeah, because you're going
In
to get
discounts.
no, not quite, because it's $60 a game. So you're
Yeah,
going to save $6 a game.
Okay, so just 5. Assuming you get no other value, if you are going to buy 5 EA games, it pays for itself.
Well, you can also play those 5 EA games you were going to buy early.
Right.
I mean,
And that early access thing, is big in
That's
the market.
cool.
It's certainly a market buzzword at this point. Oh, you can get it on early access.
so my
So
only, I'm
you
going
can
to play
play
this
it before all your friends, so then you don't have anyone to.
But again,
play
you're
with.
but that okay, that's a big deal for multiplayer. But not all of the games you're going to get early access to are multiplayer focused, like Dragon
They're
Age.
also going to try to shift you. So ultimately, this is a goal, just like Adobe, to move you to a subscription model because you have a more consistent revenue stream.
Yeah.
And also, although I can play this from two sides, and I'm going to. The one side, it'll assure a revenue stream for which they can continue to make games that we like and we want to play. However, it will also, if they can effectively implement this, it'll kill the used game market.
Well, it's another way to try and strike at the used game market. I mean, Patrick Klepek over at Giant Bomb had kind of an editorial on this, and he talked about how our relationship with physical media is changing. How we'll have just like collector's editions or things we really want to look at as physical media and do everything digitally. Now, what that shows to me, the way a lot of the game press treat this, is a lot of the game press seems to be very anti-used games. Because they argue, and maybe rightly, that it robs money from the hands of publishers.
Right, and I think that that's a fine argument if that's the argument you want to use.
But I don't like that argument because quite frankly, I game more and put more money into games overall as an ecosystem because of the existence of used games.
Oh yeah,
And I
because
pay
it
for a
opens up
lot of-
access to games that you wouldn't otherwise play. You look at a game, you're like, I'd pay $20 for that. I'm not gonna pay $60.
Right. Or I look at it as, okay, I have all of these games I don't play anymore. I'm going to go trade them in for, so like I paid no money for GTA 5 because I just traded in a bunch of things.
I paid no money for Infamous Second Son,
Right. And so to me,
which also made me enjoy that game more.
Right, sure. So I don't. I mean, by the way, GameStop's stock plunged after this announcement.
Is that right?
Yeah, they took a bath in the stock market because this does have a chance to drastically impact their business model. But I don't really think it will, because it's because it's the second run problem. That the games right now they're offering in the used market, sports games have no value.
No shelf life.
No shelf life. Right? I could go buy FIFA 13 for like $2.
It's not quite that bad, but like if you wait until in probably 3 weeks, no, it's gonna be longer than that. It's probably mid-September is usually when the FIFA is released. So the new FIFA game will be released mid-September. If you go mid-September to buy FIFA 13, which at that point will be a 2-year-old game, you can buy it for $10.
Right.
If you go and you buy The Last of Us, which is only
A year old. Year 14
no,
months
it's older than that. It's a year and a half.
old. It
Year
came
and a
out
half.
in May.
You will pay $35 or $40.
Yeah, it's 14 months. It came out in May.
Or even the previous Uncharted game.
Oh yeah, I pay like
You're gonna pay-
I bought that for like $8. I
Like-
bought Uncharted 1 for like $8.
Yeah, but like what I'm talking about is the most recent Uncharted 3. You're gonna pay probably $25 for that.
Not used. I mean new, but not used.
It really depends on what the new price is. But anyways, my point is that
Okay, June 14th, 2013 was the release date of Last of Us.
so yeah, okay, so
it's 14, 13,
a
14
year.
months.
You're good. But But anyways, the point is that story-based games hold their value significantly better than annualized sports games.
And notice there are no story-based games. Battlefield has a story mode, but that's not why you play Battlefield. There are no story-based games in this.
Currently.
And who knows what they're going to do. I mean, one of the ideas I saw on one of the articles on Giant Bomb was that maybe they'll move to, you'll have a limited, they'll rotate the games in and out. So this month you'll have these 4 games to play. Next month you'll have another different 4 games to play. So instead of having just a huge, and I think that that's probably more likely because they do still want to encourage you to buy the game, at least in the short term. Now, long term, it may grow into something more than that. But I could see them saying, okay, these are the 4 games for this month that you'll be able to play unlimited.
See, that would mean that's what essentially is in PlayStation now, PlayStation Plus, and games with gold, and that drives me nuts because. First of all, I don't really think... a lot of time it's games I don't want, but on the off chance it is a game I want, I go, oh, and then I've missed it. It's like I hate that windowing, where you can get it free, right? And you can download it, and you can keep it in your account forever. But you can only have it for this... You can only download it for this very small window of time, and I always miss that window, because it's, it's constantly rotating, and it feels a little bit like a scam.
Right, and there's no rhyme or reason to, and at least alert me that there's a new game. Send me an email. That's fine. I'll see it. I'll look at it.
Right, they don't actually want. They don't actually want you to download this.
Right, it's part of their model.
Right.
So, anyways, who knows?
So, what's going on in Spain, Sydney?
Well, so we'll get around to Spain, but there's this one persistent fashion trend that I really hate, and that is clothing with really big logos.
I like big logos.
Stick with me on this because it does track. You like big logos?
No, keep going. I'm just being...
I won't talk to you anymore. Well, I mean, you just think about all the kids walking around with Abercrombie and all that. Anyway, and of course, obviously, as children who grew up in the 90s, Gap sweatshirts, which I never owned one, so clearly I was never cool. But alas, when companies just plaster their name or their logo or whatever all over their clothing, I feel like I'm paying them to then advertise for them. And in my mind, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of backwards. If I'm going to walk around with your logo, you should pay me. That's how sponsorships work. But apparently the country of Spain does not agree with me on this subject. Because they, at least partially, passed a rather fascinating law last week. So this law, which is being called the Google tax by many in the media, requires news aggregators like Google News to pay Spanish newspapers and news outlets in order to post the headlines from said newspapers and summaries and any summaries or segments of their stories.
Bunch of savages.
Yep. So basically what we're looking at is news aggregators being charged to send traffic to news outlets. It's like, oh, my headline is popping up in your Google results and people are clicking on it, so pay me. Which seems kind of backwards, but it gets better. So Google has been confronted by similar legislation to this in other countries in Europe before, and they've generally avoided fees and all of those things by basically, if you're trying to charge Google to link to your stuff, they just don't link to your stuff anymore. And say, okay, sorry. And
I'm sorry you feel that way.
we will find other German newspapers that we like as well. But the Spanish law takes away this particular loophole by making this payment to
By loophole, we mean capitalism.
Right. To making this payment to these news companies an inalienable right.
Look, we know they don't believe in capitalism in that country.
Yeah. So basically in this legislation requires, not only are the news aggregators denied the opportunity to drop these news outlets, so you can't say, oh, you're charging me, I'm going to drop you. It's not an option. They have to pay everybody that they link to, not just the people who say, hey, pay me, but even somebody who doesn't ask to be paid now has a right to be paid and must be paid.
Yeah, it's a mandatory licensing fee.
Yeah. Fascinating. So far at
talk.
this point, this law has made it, and of course I don't understand the structure of the Spanish government, so please don't ask me to break this down, but made it through
They
basically
have a king.
part of the legislature, and will be going before the Senate in September. So can somebody please clear this up for me and tell me if there's anything about this law that just isn't just ridiculous?
Well,
The Spanish don't believe in capitalism.
ridiculous from whose perspective, right? So does
From the
this
newspaper's
law,
perspective?
from the newspaper's perspective, this is a great deal.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's my point. Like from the newspaper's perspective, yeah, this is a great deal. But from like the perspective of logic and
I'm going to start charging people to deliver pizza to me.
I like this plan.
Thank you for providing
Instead
me a
of-
service. Give me money as well. That's how I feel about this.
sure.
So I think that the concern is that in a lot of and Trey, you can use your Flipboard experiences as an example of this. I'm sure. I know when I'm going through Flipboard on my phone, I'll read the blurb, which has been pulled by Flipboard, and then there will be like a read more or something, and then that'll take me to the site.
Right.
And a lot of times I'm like, nah, it's just not that interesting, and so I'll keep going. And so I've seen the article, I've gotten the top paragraph of it, and decided that I don't care. But I didn't have to go to that site, so that site doesn't actually register that as a hit.
Right, but I feel like there's a lot more benefit from, you're going to get a lot more people that do click than you would get people who are going to go out of their way to seek out your site without this. Like,
Well, right.
it gives you those
but
stumble
exactly.
upon people that you wouldn't have without this, whereas the people who are going to have the wherewithal to go to the site in the first place would have gone there anyway.
Yeah, so they get that. So with this law, what they get is they get both.
Right, and I understand what the benefit is for them, but I don't understand.
So okay, let's think about how legislatures actually work. Who's paying them? Not Google, which is an American company.
The people.
Yeah, but it's still completely illogical.
Welcome to government. Think about who's paying them.
So okay, here's my question now. What authority does the Spanish government hold that they can prevent Google or Flipboard or whoever from removing the Spanish newspapers from their RSS feeds? Because I mean, probably a button click and it's done.
Well, I mean, they can just stop offering Google News in Spain.
Which is probably
Like,
what they'll do.
with just a
honestly.
click of a button, they can just stop offering Google News in
Yeah,
Spain.
which is the rumor of
Which
what
Right, 'cause
will happen if this gets pushed through.
Sure. And that sucks. I mean,
The
look,
response will be, no, we're not going to play your stupid game.
Europe, generally speaking, has been doing a ton of this kind of BS in the past couple of weeks. So you've got, which we haven't talked about as much on this show, the right to be forgotten. There have been tens of thousands of requests around that. The British House of Lords.
We did discuss the right
Yeah,
to be forgotten.
right, but it's been coming back up and again, and we haven't. We talked about it once. But by the way, Britain's not going to be doing the right to be forgotten. They've said the House of Lords ruled that it's totally illogical. So there's good. France basically has set it up that Amazon can't offer free shipping on books and can't offer a 5% discount, unlike every other retailer, because they were kind of out competing French small booksellers and French online booksellers. And so Amazon is no longer able to offer free shipping in France. I mean, there's this kind of backlash, not just around the Snowden stuff, but this backlash around U.S.-based e-commerce in Europe. And this is kind of another symptom of that. That they see that the money is
French
going...
don't like the idea, the French government at least, doesn't like the idea of McDonald's.
But they also only work 35 hours a week. We're not...
They're also anti-capitalism.
Right, but we're not dealing with capitalist countries. We are dealing with...
Socialist countries.
Democratically socialist countries.
Well, no, yeah, that's accurate.
The state no longer owns the means of production. I mean, they're not pure socialism, but they have a much stronger history of a socialist party than does the United States, who tends to burn them. I mean, we have a Democratic Socialist
With the
Party.
fire.
No, we have a Democratic Socialist Party, but they're called the Democrats. But They don't. No one ever wants to say that's what they are, because it is what they are. It's what they have been since the New Deal. They fit very much in line with much of European democratic socialism, but they're never going to say that, because you say the word socialism and people equate to fascism, which is also incredibly
Not
illogical.
true.
Not true.
And also, it's like tying yourself to a sinking ship. Like,
Right. My point is this is not an isolated thing, and to me, it goes back to who's paying them. Google, Amazon are U.S.-based companies, and they're the dominant player in these spaces. By the way, the social networks, totally excluded from this law. They should be included in
no,
this
they
law.
should be included because
Right, but there have been statements by the lawmakers saying, yeah, it's okay. We're not actually going to go after the social networks about this. We're only going to go after Google about this.
oh, so this is like drug enforcement in the United
Right,
States.
no, it's exactly like drug enforcement. The white people stay out and the African Americans end up getting arrested.
Yeah.
It's exactly like that, except not, because it's corporations and not real people. But it's a similar...
But Trey, corporations are people. I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah, but I'm really worried when they start marrying. Also, do I not
Called
have...
a merger, Trey.
Well, no, but since money is now protected speech, can I not pay my taxes for things I don't like? If money is protected speech? Anyways, I'm way off topic, but I've been pondering this a lot lately. Because money is protected speech. Who's paying them? And they're going to go with who's paying them. And who's paying them is not the U.S. corporations. Who's paying them is their local people who have failed to innovate or want to be paid because of Google's innovation.
Well, that's an interesting point, though. Are we moving to a point where, a actual free, as far as no pay for services, it might go away?
Well, it depends what you mean for that. You pay for all of these things.
No. By that I mean the user actually pays.
You do.
No. I mean, like, physically input credit card number here pays.
Sure. But that's different. Keep in mind, don't let them ever convince you that you're getting any of this for free.
Oh, no, you're not. Notice I said how you actually pay, not you pay with data.
You pay with data, or you pay with your
Or
time
you pay with advertising.
to view their advertising. Right? You are paying. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And when it says ad supported, what you're paying them with your time.
Also, if you use an ad blocker, you're stealing from them.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations.
You win. So, speaking of win, Russia wins.
God damn it, Russia.
We discussed in last week's show that Russia was going after the Onion router, or Tor, to try and get user data from this anonymizing service. Well, now, and but yeah, there's no proof in the wild this has actually happened. We talked about that last week. Well, now there's proof that such a method exists in the wild. The Tor project confirmed that attackers were able to operate within their system from February until July 4th. The methodology used basically set up relays within the system to skim user data. This may have been linked to a paper that was to be presented and then was pulled from the Black Hat Security Conference by Michael McCord and Alexander Volinkin about a way of breaking anonymization within Tor. But this is not being confirmed. So Russia may have a head start in breaking through Tor if this research or methodology gets into wider release. So is anything safe at this point?
No. Look, if you do it on the internet, it's not safe.
Time.
Right, but that's really wonderful when what you're worried about is naked pictures from you in high school, and it's really different when you're trying to overthrow a government that's unjust. Like the fact that we can simply, throw away whoever it's Sergey or Larry or whoever said privacy's dead. Now that's really wonderful when we're just talking about my dumb pictures from my dumb weekend.
It's Larry.
Yeah, and actually I think that
Sergey would not say that.
Actually, I think it was Schmidt. Now that I reconsider this, but
just because it's serious doesn't mean it's not true, though.
Says.
I mean, I'm not saying, I wasn't trying to be dismissive.
Or flippant.
I'm just stating a fact. It's been like that for a while now.
And
yes and no.
The Tor router has been the way. Now, okay, this is the constant battle, though, with all of these things.
It's an arms race.
It's always an arms race. You have people developing security standards, and then people fighting to break them. And then people develop better security, and then people break them, and then on and on and on and on. I think encryption really kind of is the only basically use email encrypted files. It's kind of
But even, I mean, there is
Snail
even
mail.
rumors that, NSA may have backdoors into PGP, and they certainly have had backdoors into RSA.
Right.
So even, it depends on the encryption. I mean, this is the constant battle with security, is exactly that. That it's code. So fundamentally, code is always going to be breakable at some point. There's no such thing as perfect code.
right.
I mean, in reality, there is no such thing as perfect security. It's easier to conceptualize security in the physical world, where you bury it underground in a shockproof thing with 8-foot doors and blah blah blah. But internet security works in the same way. But in the same way that you can defeat a nuclear blast door with enough time, or if you find the weakness, like the hinge or whatever, you can do that with internet security.
Right. And so, yeah, maybe they're on their way to breaking Tor, and that would be horrible.
Well, I mean, Tor
but-
has been broken. Now they can patch, and they're saying that they're going to patch, but Tor has been broken. And even the director of the Tor project was like, "Look, if you use Tor in the 6-month period, just assume you were hacked. Just operate as if you have been. You probably weren't, but just assume you were, because you were vulnerable to it, because we got hacked." So,
And yeah, if it's on the internet, it's hackable.
so speaking of vulnerable, it's this week's last call.
So, 60 Minutes, CBS news show that runs on Sunday nights that you may have heard of, ran a story last week detailing kind of the state of the land-based Minuteman III ICBMs that are part of the nuclear triad that protects the United States.
Bombers, subs, ICBMs.
Bombers, subs, ICBMs. Among a slew of other really interesting tidbits about drinking and all kinds of other random things, it was reported that not only are the computer systems controlling the launch of our nuclear warheads ancient, but they're so old that they run on floppy disks. And when I say floppy disks, I'm not saying 3.5-inch floppy disks, like the ones everyone had in elementary school.
Or high school.
Sure, I used them in high school too.
Well, yeah, no, but I remember in elementary
All right,
school
yeah.
when we moved back to the United States, it was one of the things you need is for your computer class, you need to bring a 3.5-inch floppy.
Right.
And that was true for me up through high school.
See, I
in high
moved
school is when we switched to
flash
drives.
Yeah.
Because the files were getting of sufficient size that you couldn't fit them on a floppy anymore.
And also-
doing CDs was just stupid.
And XP had a built-in default driver for those kind of things, making that
Yeah.
device class possible, which was not possible in Windows 98 or Windows 95. Windows 95 didn't even have a default USB driver. You had to add. There was a special version of it that
It was all
included
serial.
USB.
Everything basically you were doing was serial or whatever.
Parallel.
Anyways, we're way off the
Yeah, I was
rails.
about to say, I'm sorry, I won't comment anymore.
So, anyways, the point is that 3.5-inch floppies were pretty common in the 90s. But no, these aren't 3.5-inch floppies. They're like they looked like 8.5-inch.
They're either
floppies.
8.5s or 5.25s, but
They were,
they're
they were
big
bigger
ones.
than the 5.25s. They were like 8.5s.
Then they're 8.5s,
They were
yeah.
huge. Apparently, the Air Force recently evaluated the security of these ridiculously old systems, and they determined that they were actually very secure because it turns out that these computers are standalone devices that are not networked in any way, aka they're not connected to the internet.
They are networked, but they're not
Fantastic.
networked. They're not connected to the internet.
They're not networked to the internet.
Right.
And so, as a result of that, they would be immune to all attacks, including like anything that comes on a flash drive.
Yeah, they are immune to anything that requires a USB port. Correct.
So, Trey, do you think Anonymous will see this as their next target for their land-based offensive?
I mean, I think it's hilarious, right? And they're now going to spend hundreds of millions to upgrade the system.
No. The number to upgrade everything was 300.
155 million over the next 10 years.
I heard billion with
No,
the
it was
B.
million. It was
I
million.
heard billion.
No. 350.
For all of it. No, that's like for ICBMs, and then all the subs and bombers and all the rest of it.
Okay, yeah. But in terms of the computer system, it was several $100 million over the next
Yeah.
10 years. So great. Now, it is incredibly secure in one way, right? Because you can't hack it. I mean, you can't. I mean, if you were
Unless
sitting
you
there,
have physical access to the device. Look, all protection goes out the window when you have physical access to the device.
right? But
but-
assuming you don't have physical, and this device is literally buried underground
Say we try not to give
Behind
people physical access to that.
behind a 8-foot blast door with trained Air Force commandos protect. Like there's a lot of real physical protection in the way of this. That's
There's
not
also
trivial.
lots of other interesting tidbits. Like apparently the phones don't work great.
Broken.
and
Yeah.
probably because the wiring is all from like the 60s.
Yep. I mean,
So it's all crap.
it's all 1960s technology with some stuff installed in the 80s.
But it was really interesting to listen to them talk about. So the link is going to be in the show notes. We found out about this through an actual link to a John Oliver story, where he was talking through this and trying to be like, Jon Stewart, where he does real news stuff.
Yeah, it's his show on HBO. What is it? Last week tonight or whatever.
Last week tonight with John Oliver. But we pulled it from a Chris Matishchik article on CNET, and he said, let's see, Oliver suggests that if America reduced the number of weapons, it might be able to invest in software that's more sturdy and therefore less floppy.
Sure. Yes. Ha ha. Funny. But in a way, the simplicity of this is its strength, right? Because it's not internet connected, so it's a lot less hackable.
But there was all kinds of interesting stuff that they were talking about, like how the engineers, they're like, man, the engineers in the 60s that built this stuff were brilliant. Like, they were telling about a nuclear warhead that dropped in North Carolina on the day that JFK was getting inaugurated. And like it fell out of a B-52 bomber.
Armed. It was an armed nuclear weapon. Yeah.
Hit the ground,
And because
and only did not detonate because one safety switch managed to prevent it.
right.
Everything else said, yeah, do it, blow up.
Or another one, a guy dropped some sort of tool in a missile tube and pierced the fuel on the missile and caused a tremendous explosion. But because of the shock mounting of the warhead itself, there was not a nuclear detonation.
Right, and the fact that there are enough safeties in that.
Yeah. I mean, they were, they were planning for the end of the world. Unfortunately, the codes for the end of the world run on an 8.5-inch floppy that can be defeated by a household magnet.
What if I could play Pong on it?
Yes. Assuming
Would you
yeah.
like to play a game?
Yeah. That's another John Oliver jokes. Like, they will probably watch War Games and go, man, I hope someday we can get our hands on this.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
On that note, it's probably time to end. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any feedback for the show, podcast@textlastcall.com, pinterest.com/textlastcall, facebook.com/textlastcall, or @textlastcall on the Twitters. However you find us, you'll be seeing us on the interwebs.